Good morning. Today is Wednesday, Chaf Menachem Av, the 20th day of Menachem Av. Today is the yahrzeit of the Rebbe's father and the great sage, the Kabbalist, Levi Yitzchak. So today we're going to finish the fifth letter of Igeret Hakodesh in Tanya. This was a long letter. We learned it the whole week, last week. And we get to the answer, the conclusion of what it means, making Hashem's name. So yesterday we discussed about the way Hashem created the world. He created with pure kindness for the undeserving. There was no one to deserve. There was no one, Adam Ayin Lavedus Adama, there was no man to work the land. The spiritual work, there was no one there to work the spiritual work. So Hashem created the world with the attributes of kindness, which is the attributes of just giving. And this was the attribute of Abraham. But once Hashem created the world, He created the system that we should earn and we should work and we should draw down this great light from Hashem into this world. And the way it's done, what Alter Rebbe is going to discuss today, is that it's done by joining forces of two types of souls. The Arizal says there are the souls who study the Torah, and there are those souls who do the mitzvahs, occupy themselves with mitzvahs and kindness. Now, of course, people who study Torah need to do kindness as well, and people who do kindness, do mitzvahs, need to study Torah as well. But nevertheless, there are two types of souls. There are certain souls that their main task in this world is to be studying Torah deeply. And we're going to learn about what they accomplished through their Torah study. And most of us are people who mainly occupy ourselves with business, working, occupying ourselves with mitzvahs, with doing the right things. So this is what the Alter Rebbe is going to talk about, what they accomplished, these two types of souls, and their joining forces. He's going to explain that in order to bring down Hashem's energy into this physical low world, there is a process. There is a process of the higher spiritual world and the lower worlds. And this process of the different levels, remember we spoke about the four worlds, the world of Atzilus, the world of Beria, the world of Yetzira, and the world of Asiya. Atzilus is emanation, the world where godliness is completely revealed. The world of Beria is world of creation. And the world of Yetzira is formation, Asiya is action. And they are represented in the name of God, the Yud, the Hey, the Vav, and the Hey. The Yud is Chachma, wisdom, which refers to the world of Atzilus, where everything is completely nullified. Just like the wisdom is the spark of godliness. When you are nothing, you're just receiving a spark, an idea. The world of Atzilus is completely nullified to the idea, to seeing godliness. The Hey is the second world, the world of understanding. Beria is world of understanding. Yetzira is the Vav, Vav is number 6, the 6 emotions. And Asiya is the world of action. So what he's going to say is that the spiritual world, we need to draw down the energy step by step. the souls of the Chachamim, the sages, the scholars, the Torah scholars, they bring down this divine energy into the higher spiritual worlds. But the bottom line is to the world of in order to draw this down to the world of action, you need to join forces, that the souls of those who do the mitzvahs help to draw it down all the way down to the world of action. And that is, how is it done? By acting godly, by acting with charity, just like God is charitable. He's giving, constantly giving. That was the giving from the very beginning. It was giving and giving without asking, without anyone deserving. So the same way, when we act similarly, we draw down the energy from the higher world all the way down to this physical world. So let's see inside what the Alter Rebbe says. Said the Alter Rebbe, however, after the creation of man to work it, his lifelong task being to draw down to this world a flow of divine energy by means of an arousal from below, meaning by means of his own spiritual labors. That's what we said. In the beginning, God created the world with pure kindness because there was no man to work the land. But now once he created the man to work it and to be able to draw it down with our own work. Azai kol isaruse de le'elem. Le'oire midas chesed elyon hu beisaruse de le'tata. Now every arousal from above to arouse the attributes of supreme kindness depends on the arousal from below. As we said yesterday, that the way Hashem works is that it says Hashem tzilcha, God is like your shadow. Whatever you do, there is a corresponding act from above. You move your hand, the shadow moves. You're the same thing, Hashem is your shadow. So when we act with pure kindness, this draws down the kindness, ultimate kindness from above. B'tzedakah v'chesed she'Yisrael oisim through acts of charity and kindness the Jews perform in this world, that draws down from the higher worlds. And this is why our sages of blessed memory said, whoever says that he has nothing but Torah, and thus no kindly deeds, does not have even Torah. And the question is why? If he says, I don't have Torah, I don't have anything but Torah, I just study Torah, so I can say, okay, this person is not kind, but why do you take away the Torah from him? Why do our sages say that even Torah he doesn't have? So the Alter Rebbe is going to answer this. Because when you study Torah, what happens? You draw down the light of Hashem into the Torah. However, if it doesn't come with acts of kindness, it is stuck somewhere above there. It says, rather, one ought to engage in Torah and in performance of acts of loving kindness. You have to have both. And the Alter Rebbe explains why. For though the Torah derives from Chachma, and the world subsists by virtue of Torah. The world stands because of those who study Torah. In those who discourse in it, those who study the Torah, engage in the Torah, that's what the world stands on. And why is that? Because what happens when you study Torah? When you study Torah, you reveal the Chachma through speech. Speech is revelation. So that's why also, by the way, when we study Torah, it's not enough to read the Torah and understand it. You actually need to verbalize the words that you're saying. That when you study the Torah, this brings down this wisdom into revelation. Because by speaking of the Torah subjects, they elicit illuminations and effusions Chachma ilah mekoira Torah, from the supreme Chachma, the source of the Torah, lebechinas oisiyes hadibur shebehem nivra olam, into the plane of the letters of speech with which the world was created. As our sages of blessed memory said, with regards to Torah scholars, we say it every morning at the end of davening. Rabbi Shlomo Benoich, it says, Al tikra benoich ela benoich. Do not read benoich, means your children. It says, we say over there, Talmidei Chachamim ma'abim shalom ba'olam. The Torah scholars, they add peace in the world. Shenemar v'Rav Shlomo Benoich. Because it says the peace comes from your sons. And our sages explained, the word banaich, which means sons, can be read as bonaich. Bonaich means your builders. That the Torah scholars are builders, they're construction workers. What do they build? They build this world through the words of the Torah, because the words of the Torah bring the energy of God into the words. The words is what creates the world. Now this drawing down, this descent, this bringing down the flow of Chachma, says the Alter Rebbe, is a big, big descent. To draw down all the way to this world, it needs a tremendous kindness. And that is done through the kind acts, not just the Torah studying. Because the Torah studying, what you study, brings it down to the speech, but it lives in the more spiritual world, in the source of the world, of this physical world. That's what Alter Rebbe continues and says, nevertheless, this flow of Chachma to the letters of speech is a great descent. To accomplish this, it is necessary to arouse supernal chesed, which like water is drawn down from a high place to a low place. And how is it done? And by means of an arousal from below, through the acts of charity and kindness here below. Shemamshichim chaim v'chesed lehachayois ruach shfolim v'nitkoim, whereby one diffuses life and kindness to revive the spirit of the humble and downcast. When you do such acts and you bring kindness to people who are in a level of very humble, very downcast, people who are in need, they have nothing of their own, and you give them, this draws down the chesed elyon, the higher chesed from above, to draw down to this physical world, the great accomplishments that is done through the Torah studies. Zeu shekasov, arisal al chacham b'chachmasei, kim bezois isal al chulo, ki ani Hashem es chesed. Says this is the meaning of the verse, let not the wise man glory in his wisdom, but in this let him glory, in understanding and knowing me. And it goes on, and the verse continues, for I am God who acts with kindness. So what is he saying? He's saying the wise man should not glory with his wisdom, because then it only remains his wisdom. The thing that you can be glorified with is studying God's wisdom and acting godly, as he finishes, because I am God who acts with kindness. We thus see that wisdom is insufficient, that wisdom is justifiably glorified when it leads to an act of kindness, which in turn evokes a reciprocal act of kindness from above. Because the chesed, the kindly conduct of men here below, that results in the fulfillment of the verse, I am God who acts with kindness, meaning with chesed of asiyah, and that causes the vitality of chachma to issue downwards into the letters of speech, the source of all created beings. So when you do the Torah study along with chesed, with the kindness, this is when you draw it down. Ve'im lav, and if not, with the absence of the kind of conduct, arei nikris chachmasai levadei. The Torah study that such a person undertakes is called his wisdom alone. It remains in heaven as an untapped resource in which that wise man cannot glory. It's something that cannot be drawn down. And there is no downward flow of life from it, God forbid. You need to have the wisdom, but you need to have the life of the wisdom to be drawn down, and that is through the acts of kindness. Now goes on the Alter Rebbe and explains what we explained earlier about the two types of soul that the Arizal, Rabbi Yitzchak Luria, said. The above enables one to understand the statement of Rabbi Yitzchak Luria of blessed memory, that there are two kinds of souls among Jews. You have neshamayis tamidei chachamim oiskim b'Torah kol yameim, the souls of Torah scholars who engage in Torah study all their lives, and the souls of those who perform the commandments, occupying themselves with charitable and kindly deeds. So the L'chair and the Alter Rebbe asks a question: what does it mean when you say the two types of souls? Those souls who study Torah. Don't the Torah scholars need to do kindness as well? Of course they do. They need. Now surely, he says, the Torah scholars too, they also need to occupy themselves with acts of kindness. As our sages of blessed memories said, that we learned before, that whoever says that he has nothing but Torah does not even have the Torah. So how could the reader say that there are two types of souls? And the Alter Rebbe explains. It doesn't mean that the Torah scholars do not occupy themselves at all in the kindness, but what it means is that their main focus is on Torah studies. Some tzedakah they also do. They do acts of kindness, obviously. But what's the main goal? What's the main focus in life? Is keep and studying Torah. However, as regards to Torah scholars whose study of Torah is their principal occupation, And most of the time is spent in it. And the only minor part of the time spent on performance of kindly deeds. Now what happens? What do they fulfill? Those Torah scholars. What is their mission by the Torah, by studying the Torah with the kindness that they do? Is they draw down the Torah to the levels of the worlds of Beria and Yetzirah. Draw down from Atzilus, they draw down godliness into the world of Beria and the world of Asiya, the world of intellect, the world of the Neshamas, and the world of Yetzirah, the world of emotions, the world of the angels. That's what Alter Rebbe says. The effect of their arousal from below to arouse supernal chesed, lehamshich, to call forth and bring downward the infinite Ein Sof light vested in the supernal chachma, the source of God's Torah, which is in their mouths. Where do they draw it down? This extends only to the realm of the souls that are in Beria, the world of Beria, the second world, through their occupation with Gemara, the Talmud. And to extends to the angels that are in the world of Yetzirah through their occupation with Mishnah. As we explained before, that the Mishnah, what is the Mishnah? The Mishnah is compared to the world of emotions. Why? Because the Mishnah is just saying clear statements. You open a sukkah. What size does a sukkah need to be? Cannot be lower than this, cannot be higher than that. This is kosher, this is not. This is like emotional part. Like, I love this, I like this, I don't like this. So this is the world of emotions, is in the world of the Mishnah. Studying the Mishnah reveals the godly light into the world of Yetzirah, the third world, which is considered the world of emotions. The Talmud, on the other hand, the Talmud takes the Mishnah and analyzes it, and it goes deeper to breaks it down. This is the world of intellect, and this is connected with the world of neshamas, the world of intellect in the world of Beria, as we said before. Continues Alter Rebbe and says, "Ya neyois chayus aneshamas v'amalochim nishpois mitzirufe yoisi sadibu v'tir shebal peh." For the animation of the souls and angels derives from the combinations of the letters of speech, meaning the oral Torah. As it is written in Patach Aliyahu, we say every Friday, the sphere of Malchus corresponds to the mouth, which we call the oral Torah. The source of the letters, however, is in the supernal chachma, as mentioned above. So that's what the Torah scholars do. Through their acts of kindness, of studying the Torah, with kindness, of course, the kindness that they do, they draw it down to the world of Beria and Yetzirah. However, and this, as we said, this brings the name of God, the Yud, and the Hey, and the Vav. The Yud is the wisdom. And you bring it down to the Hey. The Hey is the world of understanding, the world of Beria. And further down to the Vav, the world of Yetzirah, the world of emotions. But now that this is not the complete name of God yet, you still need to draw it down to the last Hey. The last Hey is the world of action. This is the Malchus, this is the kingdom, the royalty, the speech that moves on further to the lowest world. And for that, we need to have the second types of Jew. the type of Jew, the souls that had souls of actions, souls that occupy themselves with kindness most of their lives. They also need to study Torah, of course, but what is the main focus is then the action. Continues the Alter Rebbe, however, in order to call forth and bring downwards an illumination and vitality from the level of the supreme breath, the lower hay, the hay of the name of Hashem, the last hay, to this lowly world, in order to bring it down to this world, which entails a greater and extreme contraction to bring down to this low physical world. For that, says the Alter Rebbe, it's not enough to have what the Torah scholars accomplished. We need it. Without them, we cannot go further down. They need to bring it down to the world of Beriah and Yetzirah. But we need to join forces and to draw it down to our world. That's the Alter Rebbe. Loi dai beisaruse de lesata shel tamidei chachamim, ois kim miyut yemeim b'tzedakah gemilas chasadim. The arousal from below by the Torah scholars, who for only a small part of their time engage in charitable and kindly deeds, that is not sufficient. This is effected only through an arousal by those who perform the commandments, who are occupied with deeds of charity and kindness for the major part of their lives. As explained in Likutei Amarim, Part 1, Chapter 34, over there the Alter Rebbe explained that the mitzvahs that a person does, they call them the people who act themselves they occupy themselves with gemilas chasadim, with act of it, kindness. What is the point of acting with kindness? Is that the entire life becomes kind. Even a person goes to work and he gives tzedakah, the 10%, the 20%, whatever he does. If he's wealthy, he gives more. So when you do this, then every part of your day is act of kindness. It's not only that when you give the 20% that this is the acting kindness, but whatever you do elevates this giving of the tzedakah elevates the rest of the day, because the energy that you invest into making this money is being elevated when you're doing the kindness. And that is why it says this joining of the forces, that the second type of neshama, those souls who occupy themselves with acts of kindness, they draw down the light that was brought down through the souls, the people, the Torah scholars, that he brought down to the higher worlds. Continues the Alter Rebbe and says, that is why people who are mainly occupied with such mitzvahs, they are called the supporters of the Torah itself. What does it mean, the supporters? We're not just talking that they are supporting financially the Torah. We're talking about physical support. Physical support, like the body needs physical support. What is the support of the body? Is the two thighs, the legs, that you stand with the feet on the ground. The people who do the acts of kindness down on the ground in the physical world, they are the support on them, the Torah itself, that will bring it down to this world. And these people represent the levels of Netzach and Hod. Netzach and Hod are the emotional characters, the emotional attributes of Netzach. The Netzach means being victorious, being persistent, and Hod. The Hod those two attributes are the emotions that bringing the emotions into act, into reality. In other words, a person can be emotional and have an emotion of kindness, emotion of restrictions, but in order to bring the emotion into reality, you need to have persistence. Like you want to do something good, you hear about something, you have to develop a feeling to do something, but in order to carry that feeling to actuality, you need to have two legs, to be persistent, to bring it down into this world. That is the Netzach and Hod. Because they cause the light of the Torah to issue downward to the world of Asiyah. Now it is clear why charity is referred to as an act. As in the verse, and the act of charity will be peace. Why is it called the act of charity? Because this makes the light of Hashem into the world of action. For the effect of the charity is to elicit the light of God down to the world of Asiyah. Now we understand this is the meaning of the subtle phraseology of the Holy Zohar, that he who makes the holy name, the Ovid Daike expressly saying who makes the name of God. So that's what we said before, making God's name, the name of Yud, Hey, the Vav, and the Hey. What does it mean, making? The Zohar says, who is the one who makes the world of the name of God? The one who acts charitable. Because the one who acts charitable brings this great light of Hashem into the world of action, which is making the name of Hashem. Because by an arousal from below through charity and mortal chesed, kindness, one arouses the supernal chesed. To elicit the infinite Ein Sof light from the supernal chachma, which is the Yud of the divine name. Lehei shel Shem, to the Hey of the name, to the speech and breath of God's blessed mouth, in order to draw down divine light to the world of Asiyah, the world of action. And analogously speaking, though infinitely incomparable, a human being speaks only to others, and not when he is alone. And then when speaking to them, he contracts his intellect and thought. You have a deep concept you want to deliver to someone, you have to contract. If you want to bring it down in speech, you have to think what words to use and how to say, how much to say. So the same thing is, in order to bring down Hashem's light into this world, it is done through the acts of kindness. When you contract and you give to someone who doesn't have, and the intelligent will understand. And this is the end of this chapter, chapter Hey, concluding with the understanding of what it means that what says in the Zohar, that King David made the name of God by acting charitable. So all of this explanation gives us the understanding how the joint forces of the two souls, the souls of the scholars and the souls of the people who do tzedakah. And by the way, the Rebbe, Alter Rebbe says in the Tanya in another chapter that these days in our generation, the vast majority of people are doing acts of kindness, business people, working people, not like in the previous generations. And that is because we live in a time where the higher spiritual worlds were already elevated and purified. We need to bring it down all the way to the world of action. Hashem wants that this physical world should become a world of filled with godliness. Dira betachtonim, a home in this low world. And that is done through mainly to tzedakah, and of course, that is involves with the Torah study, that is Keim Chayenu, this is our life. And thank you for joining. Anybody, any questions we can take now? And we shall continue tomorrow, B'ezrat Hashem.